Yo, what's good? How y'all doing today? Tonight, I should say. I've got quite a bit to say. This won't be as long as my usual live streams because I'm only going to go in on one topic. I couldn't really find anything that really struck my fancy that seemed like I could get excited about it. But Black Conservative Inc. always provides. So we'll be talking about that. Give you some thoughts. I mean, you basically already know how I feel about it, but I want to on this a little bit. So I'm going to let some more people come in. Hope everybody's doing all right. Let me know you're live in the chat. All right. What is going on? All right. Ricky Manor. You saw me on Twitter. All right. Well, hopefully I don't disappoint. Aja Smith, always in the house. Appreciate you. Yes, I'll be having you on soon. Mickey Love, how you doing? How you doing? Aaron, no, nobody else has made a background for me yet. But hey, like I said, that actually kind of brings me to my next thing here. If you want to support my work, you can sign up for my locals.com community. It's in the show notes. But I am going to be really kind of going to start pushing more towards this and having more members only premium content on certain things. I'll be having a video up soon about with my thoughts on CPAC. So definitely get a subscription if you want to support my work. If you like what I'm doing, it's only $5 a month. Like I always say, that's less than a coffee at Starbucks. Or if you want to do a one-time donation, you can hit me at one of these links, or I've got some in the show notes as well. But going back to what Aaron was saying, he hooked me up. He gave me $10, and he made up his own background, which I still hate him for. And I had to use that background for 10 minutes. So I guess it's like it broke out to $1 a minute. I actually kept it on there longer, but it was very hard to stomach, to say the least. So I'm just going to let a few more people come in. All right. Ricky Manor, popular Black conservative. Is that you? All right. Okay. Who else we got? Jonah Oravio. JLP and Brandon Tatum already made YouTube videos about Shamika and the CPAC panel, mainly Shamika. That's not really off topic here, though. I mean, I'll get into that a little bit, too. I have a feeling that Maj Touré's panel at CPAC did a little bit of triggering, just a little bit. Let me go ahead and turn this off here. So I will go ahead and get started. Actually, let me just share the link really quick. Let me turn that off. 1 second. Just push this out right quick. And if you could do me a huge favor and also share this video, I would highly, highly appreciate it. And also subscribe. If you haven't subscribed already, please hit that subscribe button. That helps me out a lot. I'm getting closer and closer to my goal, so hopefully I get there soon. Let's see. All right. Okay, just pop that in there. How's everybody's week going? Let me know in the chat. How's your week going? It's almost over, so it should be going well, but let me know how y'all are doing. All right, let's see what else we got here. Okay. Thank you for driving. I appreciate it. All right. Okay, so let's get started. So you saw the title, right? Candace Owens lies about about Black culture. Again, she does it a lot. But even though Candace Owens is the one that I put in the title, I'm not going to focus on her personally too much. I'm going to focus on what she said. But the tweets that she posted could have come from anybody in coming from what I call Black Conservative Inc. Many of you already know who these folks are. It's the Black conservative establishment that's been around for a while. They basically make their career by promoting certain narratives about the Black community. And you see them a lot on media, Fox News, OANN, or what have you. And they've really been propped up by the conservative movement and by the Republican Party. And they have come to represent the newest iteration of Black conservatism. Now, before I even get too deep into that, like I always want to remind you, the talking points that they use and the messaging that they have is not their own. Candace Owens didn't come up with a single talking point that she uses, and neither do the rest of them. These are talking points that have been passed down through the generations over the past 10, 20 years or so, probably even more than that. And there's always a new Black face that they use to promote these talking points and this messaging about the Black community. So first, I'm just going to go into it. Let's see. Okay. So today, Candace Owens posted this tweet 10, here. 20 years or so, probably even more than that. Black culture honestly breaks my heart. Black face that they use to promote it disintegrated so quickly from topics of faith, family, and love to absolute debauchery. We went from the Temptations and Commodores to naked women debasing themselves in the blink of an eye. We are ruining Black children with false idols. Posted this tweet 20 years or so, probably. She says, then shortly after, she posted this. It disintegrated so quickly from topics of faith, family, and love. Oh, I'm on the wrong account. See, I'm blocked on my regular account. We went from the Temptations, so I have another one that I use. Women debasing themselves in the. All right, where is it? We are ruining Black children with false idols. All right, 1 second. I'm just going to look it up really quick. Then. After my heart, she posted this. It disintegrated so quickly from topics of faith, family, and love. Oh, I'm on the wrong account. See, I'm blocked on my regular account. We went from the Temptations. So she says, all right, where is it? We are ruining Black children. Here, let's just do this. I guess I forgot how to use Twitter. Okay. Okay, so she says, we went from the Huxtables, the Winslows, and the Jeffersons to the cast of Love and Hip Hop, and we think it's racism that's keeping us from excelling in this country. This culture was not created by us, it was designed for us. You have the courage to call it out. Now, that last line kind of tickled me a bit, like the idea that saying this takes courage. Sorry, I mean, bashing the Black community, like I posted this on Twitter earlier, and I said, it's bashing the Black community in front of a certain segment of white conservatives is like standing up in front of a crowd of Hollywood elites and bashing Trump. There's no bravery. Now, that last line kind of she knows how this is going to be taken. So, but I also want to go to a tweet that she had posted a while ago about Black culture, because this is really the important issue here. And again, this isn't just her. So these tweets could have come from anybody who comes from Black conservative Inc. It just happens that it came from her. So if you remember with the whole Ahmaud Arbery situation, and people were justifiably upset about that. A while ago, she decided to try to use a 9-year-old boy who was murdered to distract from what was going on with the Ahmaud Arbery situation. Oh, hold up! Just happens that it came from her. There's an echo. Okay, hold on. With the whole Ahmaud Arbery, let me. That's weird. That's never happened before. People were justifiably upset about that a while ago. She decided to try to just. Okay, is that better? Let me know if this is better. Is there still an echo? This is weird. This has never happened to me before. This is better. Okay, great. Sorry about that. Okay, hopefully you were able to hear what I was saying. But good thing it didn't take me longer to read the comments. But okay, so like I was saying, if you remember what happened during the Ahmaud Arbery situation, she decided to weigh in on Black culture again. And in this case, she used the death of a 9-year-old Black kid to distract from what was going on with the Ahmaud Arbery situation. And she said, Black America, when 9-year-old Tyshawn Lee is lured from a basketball court down an alleyway and shot dead by a Black gang member, crickets. Black America, when a repeat burglar is shot dead after breaking into a home. Racism, injustice, protests, our culture is a joke. Now, I'm going to reiterate what I was saying before with the echo so that you guys get that part. But she posted this today. She put, Black culture honestly breaks my heart. It disintegrated so quickly from topics of faith, family, and love to absolute debauchery. We went from the Temptations and the Commodores to naked women debasing themselves in the blink of an eye. We are ruining Black children with false idols. And then shortly after that, she tweeted, we went from the Huxtables, the Winslows, and the Jeffersons to the cast of Love and Hip Hop, and we think it's racism that's keeping us from excelling in this country. This culture was not created by us. It was designed for us, and few have the courage to call it out. Now, like I just said, I mean, it doesn't take courage for a Black conservative to say this, right? Like I tweeted earlier, and like I said with the echo, bashing the Black community for a segment of white conservatives is about as brave as bashing Trump in front of a crowd of Hollywood elites. You're talking to people who already agree with you or have been fooled by you. And like I was saying before, this isn't just about Candace Owens. Again, I put her in the title, but I'm going to focus more on Black Conservative Inc. And we know who those folks are, because these tweets could have come from anybody in that circle, not just her. It just happened to be her that said this. And it is a message about Black culture that they like to promote to their audience, which is mostly white. Now, obviously, I don't have an issue with them having a mostly white audience. Most of my audience is white, too. When you're in the conservative sphere, your audience is going to be mostly white. And it's going to be that way until we change things in a way that entices more minorities to come over to the right. So I don't have a problem with that part of it. But the issue here is the deception involved in here. And I use the word deception because because some people might say, oh, maybe they just don't know any better, or they just don't know Black people. No, I don't think that's it. I give them too much credit for that. These are not stupid people. These are intelligent people. So they know that when they say stuff like this, that they are deceiving their audience in this case, trying to make it sound like Black culture is all about love and hip hop and all this other stuff. And it's very interesting that she talked about, the Temptations and Commodores. I mean, David Ruffin, was it David Ruffin? His last name was Ruffin, lead singer of the Temptations. He was a crackhead and he died in a crack house. Like, he wasn't exactly an upstanding person. I'm not saying that to disrespect him. I'm just saying that was the facts. That's how he died. But she's trying to make it sound like people in Black music just all of a sudden got into debauchery. I mean, she talks about the Commodores. I mean, does she know what they were talking about when they said she's a brick house? I mean, it was a little bit more subtle back then, but come on. And the other thing, too, is that, when you talk about hip hop and you talk about hip hop culture, in any culture, there are negative aspects of it and there are positive aspects of it. You will never hear anybody in Black Conservative Inc. talk about the positive aspects of hip hop culture or Black culture. And there's a reason for that. They want their white audiences to believe the worst about us. And now she's talking about TV shows here with the Huxtables, the Winslows, Jeffersons, all that good stuff. And she's making it sound like it went from that to just outright trash on Black TV. And I will say that when it comes to networks like BET, like back in the day, there were issues with that. They used to promote a lot of negative stereotypes. It was pretty nasty, but that's not all there was. And that's the problem. She makes it sound like only those shows existed. The Huxtables and the Winslows and the Jeffersons were the only decent or wholesome families in Black television. That's not true. I mean, even now, I mean, you have Blackish. I mean, some of you might like that show, but I mean, the characters in that show are not thugs. Grownish, it's kind of an offshoot. Mixedish, that's all an offshoot of Blackish. But these are normal Black people. These aren't thugs or criminals or what have you. You remember that show, Everybody Hates Chris, like the story of Chris Rock's upbringing? That was more wholesome too. Look at the superheroes. Luke Cage. If you look at his story, he's trying to better the Black community. Now, they might like him a little bit better because he beats up a lot of Black people, but at the end of the day, Luke Cage loves Black people, and he's a decent person. He goes through his struggles just like everybody does, but at the end of the day, he's a good guy. I mean, there's a show I really liked called Greenleaf. And I had some issues with this show, but overall it was entertaining, so I liked it. But it depicts Black people in the church and the issues that go on there. I could name off show after show after show. If you look it up, you can see there are plenty of Black shows that are perfectly fine. But she wants you to think, and I'm talking to white conservatives here, they want you to think that most of what we watch is love and hip hop. They want you to think that most of what we listen to is Cardi B and whap, 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 whap. Now, here's the thing. She talks about our children having false idols. Now, I don't know if most Black parents are letting their 5, 6, 7 teenage daughters listen to that song. They shouldn't be. I'm sure there's some. I mean, you can have that with any culture, but that is not who we are as a whole. Now, she talks about culture, right? Now, I'm going to do something here. I looked up the definition of culture. So I'm going to go with a couple of these. So we've got the customary beliefs, social forms, and material traits of a racial, religious, or social group. Also, the characteristic features of everyday existence, such as diversions or a way of life that are shared by people in a place or time. Another good definition might be the set of shared attitudes, values, goals, and practices that characterizes an institution or an organization. So with that definition in mind, I mean, I think that pretty much comports with what most of us think is culture. One would have to think that if you're going to attribute a certain characteristic to a culture, that characteristic would apply to a large chunk of people in that culture. Let's say 30, 40, 50, 60, 70% would have to believe in whatever attitude or behavior that you're attributing to them. And it can include cuisine, food, music, customs, traditions, all of that stuff applies to what culture is. So, for instance, a lot of people on the right, Black Conservative Inc. especially, will make it sound like criminality is an integral part of Black culture. Promiscuity, violence, drugs. She used the word debauchery. So for that to be true, it would have to apply to most Black people, or at least a significant chunk, especially when you're talking about crime. They love to talk about Black on Black crime. They say, oh, they love the 1350 statistic that says that 13% of the population commits 50% of violent crimes. What they won't tell you is that the Black people who commit those crimes represent less than 1% of the entire Black population. So yes, if you're looking at it proportionately, which they love proportionality when it works for them, that can be a whole different other story. But all in all, most Black people are not committing crimes, and they're not committing violent crimes, especially. When it comes to welfare, yes, are there too many Black people on welfare? Yeah, sure. And here's the thing, and this is a characteristic of the left, where they'll take an idea that has a modicum of truth to it. It'll have a kernel of truth to it, but they'll take it to the nth degree and exaggerate it as much as possible in order to promote certain narratives, right? So they talk about welfare. Well, most Black people are not on welfare. Most Black people aren't even living below the poverty line. I'm not saying that there are not issues that Black people face. I'm not even saying that there aren't issues in our systems, if we're talking systemically, that Black people face that others don't. Now, I don't necessarily believe that it exists to the extent that the left uses it, because again, they take something that has a modicum of truth and then they exaggerate it so that they can manipulate the narrative. But I do believe that those things exist. But that's what she's doing here. She's saying, I mean, other people who listen to Cardi B, yeah, I've listened to her a few times. I'm not really into her like that, but even that song, I listened to it and I thought it was funny. I was like, wow, they really went there, didn't they? That's crazy. I mean, the beats were nice. I like nice beats. I usually don't even listen to the lyrics of the songs. But I listen to hip hop. I listen to mostly. When it comes to black music, I'm listening more to like old school. That's just my thing. Fire, Commodore's Temptations, like she said. I love it. I grew up with it. That's just what I'm into. Rick James, all of that. But here's the thing. They use statistics in a way that are designed to promote a narrative. Now, again, if most of us aren't dealing with something or going through something or engaging in a certain type of behavior, you can't say that it's just part of our culture. Now, is there a such thing as gang culture? Yes. Hood culture, whatever you want to call it, that does exist. But they want to paint the picture that this is one of the main issues in the Black community, and that even further, Black people don't care about it. Like she mentioned with Tyshawn Lee, she made it sound like Black people didn't care that 9-year-old boy was shot. I guarantee you they did. There are millions of Black people all across the country that worked to curb gang violence and drug activity in their communities. They have different levels of success depending on where you're talking about, but they're working with schools, they're working with the police to try to clean up their streets, and a lot of them have had a lot of success. You just don't hear about them because the media doesn't want you to know. The left-wing media does not want you to know these people exist, and right-wing media doesn't want you to know that these people exist because they use it for certain narratives. For the right, they want to portray Black people as apathetic to issues in their own community, but we only care if a white police officer shoots a Black man. That's not accurate. And again, I'm not saying that every conservative pundit is trying to push this narrative. I'm not even saying that the ones who do push the narrative are doing so out of malicious motivations. A lot of them are deceived too. But the issue is that these things are falsehoods, they're exaggerations, and they're stereotypes. There was some, let me see if I can find the tweet real quick. If not, it's okay. Because I know it's okay, because I actually remember what he said. So Julian Ackyard, if you follow him on Twitter, he was responding to another tweet, and he was saying a lot of the issues with rank and file white conservatives who believe these things about Black people are just born out of ignorance. And he can work with that because with ignorance, it's just you counter it with education. And when I say ignorance, I don't mean stupidity. We are all ignorant about something. We're all ignorant about a lot of stuff. There's a lot of stuff that I'm ignorant about. Not because I'm a bad person, but just because you don't know what you don't know, right? So that's why I don't go as hard at a lot of white conservatives who have these ideas, because they don't know. And how could they? I mean, if you think about it, white conservatives, if we're talking geographically, they're not in areas where there are a lot of Black people where they can sit down and have these deeper conversations and learn from it. And it's not because they're racist. It's just because geographically they don't live where a ton of other Black people live. I've had this conversation with plenty of white conservatives, and they've confirmed it. I commented on Owens's tweet, and I had some responses saying, "Oh, well, she's right." And one of them I responded to, and I said, "So where did you get that from? Why do you think she's right?" And I said, "This is an honest question. I'm not attacking you. Why do you think that?" Because I wanted him to think it through. I wanted him to think, well, wait, why do I think this? Because I can guarantee you he never questioned it. We all do this to some extent. We all accept certain narratives as fact without really thinking about it. And he responded back and he said, to be honest, a lot of it is what I see in music videos and on the media and what have you. He admitted it because it's true. Most of what they know about us comes from the television. And again, this doesn't apply to everybody. I'm just saying it applies to a lot. And the way you combat that is with education, which is why I'm glad that there are a lot of other Black conservatives that are coming out right now that are helping to educate people on the Black community on the right, because they need it. The way they view the Black community is so inaccurate that they couldn't possibly be able to reach out to the Black community because they would get everything wrong. So I want to continue going, but I'm going to take a little break here to take a look at the chats here and get a little swig out of my magic water jug. Let me go back up here. Okay. All right. Black culture isn't a monolith. There are regional differences in the elements of culture. Candace Owens is planning for her next big grift. Well, it is grifting season, so whatever. I mean, what she said, this is red meat for the base, right? Again, they know this stuff is not true, but they want their white audiences to believe that it is. And I'm going to get to that in just a few minutes. But Black culture isn't a monolith. Even Black conservatives or Black conservatism, that's not a monolith either. There's a lot of diversity of thought within the world of Black conservatism. Most people don't know that because the right only showcases one type of Black conservative. Let's see. Yeah, see? So Poar, I don't know how to pronounce that, but I agree. It wasn't all peaches. It wasn't all peaches and cream back then. She needs to change it from Black culture to hood culture. Exactly what I was saying. Now, you can say that Black people are overrepresented in hood culture, gang culture. That wasn't always the case. For a while, it was the Italians. It was the Irish. There were even Jewish gangs before it was Black people. So this isn't an element of Black culture. If anything, you can ascribe it more to, say, poverty or lack of education. This isn't something that's inherent in Black American culture. Again, because if it were, there would be far more of us doing these things. Let's see. Let me scoot down here. To be fair, everybody hates Chris Chodum getting robbed every day by Black dudes. But you remember that bully, though, that used to always beat him up? I mean, that white bully. I didn't watch that show that often, but I did like it. Let's see. And that's another point. I'm glad you brought that up. I almost forgot to talk about that. I've seen more white girls on TikTok dancing to Cardi B. First off, why are you watching white girls dancing on TikTok anyway? But here's the thing. Who listens to hip hop? Yeah, Black people listen to it. A lot of white folks listen to that whap, 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 whap. They loved it. I'm just saying, more white people than Black. Let's see. Yeah, okay, so Greg Bulla, glad you're here. Regarding Everybody Hates Chris, Terry Crews's character, Julius, was a good example of a man with conservative values taking care of his family. Exactly. But here's the thing. Do you ever hear Black Conservative Inc. talking about these people? A lot of times when I ask white conservatives why they're into certain Black conservative figures, and they say, oh, well, they tell it like it is, or they don't mince words, or they they use tough love or whatever. And I say, okay, but do you think that these people actually like Black people? Because they don't come off that way. They're like, yeah, it's just tough love. Okay. When have you ever heard anybody from that camp say anything positive about Black culture or about Black people in general? I get crickets every single time I ask that question, because they speak nothing but negative. And the thing is, if you love somebody, for those of you who are married, what do you think it would look like if 99.9% of what you said about your wife or husband was negative? What would that look like? It wouldn't last very long, would it? Would you do that to your kids? Yeah, sometimes you have to show tough love to your kids. But do you spend 99.9% of your time criticizing them? No. You talk about the good and the bad. None of them will talk about the richness of Black culture, of Black history. They won't talk about the accomplishments that Black people have done and the contributions that Black people have made to this country. That doesn't come out of their mouths very often, if at all. Now, if you've noticed that some of them have talked a lot about Black culture in a positive light, let me know. I will correct myself. I will change my opinion. But I've never seen it, and I've looked. Let's see. Let's see. It's true. Sounds like a troll. Murderers. Thieves. Per capita Blacks are on the most welfare. Yeah, it's like Black America isn't setting their best, are they? Good God. Yeah, but most Black people aren't on welfare. That's an inconvenient truth for you. I get that you might want to believe that. I understand that you might want to have certain attitudes about Black people. I know that what I'm saying might cause a little bit of cognitive dissonance, but that's okay. The butthurt will go away. It's okay. You don't have to be married to that opinion. Let's see. Oh, Felicia's here. It's about time. Gosh. um, I still listen to hip hop, but I'm old school. I'm more like that too. I don't listen to a lot of the current stuff. It's just not my cup of tea. Um, let's see. I think Candace Owens might be one of the Black people who honestly has rarely or never seen normal Black people. I don't know where non-hood Black people even live, but I know they exist. Well, you're watching one. I wasn't raised in the hood. I've never even claimed that. Now, I've been around a lot of hood Black folks. I've been to hoods, but I was not from the hood. I was not raised that way. Thank God. I didn't have to go through that. But in the response to what you're saying about Owens, I think she knows better. I mean, she talks about how she lived in Philly, and I know that she didn't come from the hood. She came from a well-to-do family, but she knows that this isn't true. She knows that the stuff she's saying isn't true. It is possible that she's just so far detached that she doesn't know anything. But I'm sorry, even if that were the case, and I give her the benefit of the doubt. And again, this doesn't just apply to her. That this applies to a lot of people with Black conservative ink. They should at least talk to Black people, and that's the big problem. They don't talk to Black people. They talk to each other, and they talk to their white conservative audience, but they don't talk to people from the Black community. Even online, like, I mean, even if they don't want to say go to Chicago or go to East Austin or Los Angeles, there are ways that you can connect with Black people who are working in their areas to better their cities. There are a lot of, I mean, there are people who are famous that are doing it. Killer Mike, Kanye West. Probably shouldn't mention T.I. I made that mistake last time too. But I mean, there are others. Nipsey Hussle, when he was alive, they used their wealth to build up Black communities. Let's see what else we got here. Ooh, that's a good point. She was silent about Tyshawn Lee when he was murdered. Meanwhile, Nick Cannon, Bobby Rush, and others were actually at the funeral. See, that's the thing. I mean, that's the problem. And again, I will say that a lot of these people do this without necessarily ill intention. But the fact that she only brought him up because she wanted to distract from Ahmaud Arbery is abhorrent. And I think with other people, they may do that not understanding what they're saying. But I give them, like I said, I give Black conservative ink too much credit. They know what they're doing. Let's see. Oh wait, it skipped. Okay. Okay. All right. Oh wait, no, that was the wrong thing. I just finished reading her Blackouts. The book was full of tropes and never added anything new to the conversation. I'm glad you were willing to take that bullet for us, bro. I appreciate you. But I mean, that's not a surprise, right? I mean, those aren't her talking points. These come down from way back. Let's see. You know what? Leave my water jug alone, all right? I drink a lot of water. I need to stay hydrated. Gosh. I'm an immigrant and will never vote liberal. Okay, cool. Let's see. Who specifically besides Candace Owens is a messaging problem? Oh, now I got to name names. So there's Candace Owens, Brandon Tatum, Anthony Brian Logan. I don't always like to talk about them by name because this really isn't personal. This isn't. If you notice, I don't call them names. I don't, call them names that people on the left might call them. I don't hate them. I don't even know them. I target specifically what they say because it's what they say that I really have the issue with. And a lot of times how they say it. And like I said on my last broadcast, I mean, on the panel, they talked about it at CPAC. When it comes to policy, I would probably agree with them on, say, maybe 80% to 85% of policy issues. But when it comes to messaging, they're doing more harm than good. Let's see. All right. One of the biggest issues in our Black culture is the absence of fathers, not some random white dudes. Okay. Right. So what caused the absence of fathers? I agree that that's an issue. Now, it's not as much of an issue as the right says it is. I mean, they make it sound like 75% of Black children are raised without both parents. That's not true. Now, if that stat is true, what that stat is actually saying is that 70 or whatever it is, because it changes from 70 to 75 to 77%. I don't know what it is. They keep changing it. So let's say it's 70%. Just because they're born to single parents doesn't mean that their parents are not together. That statistic does not account for children who are born to parents who are together but not married. It doesn't account for children who are born to parents who get married after the child is born. Now, ideally, it'd be better if they were married before the child is born, of course, but it doesn't always work out that way, and it doesn't always work out that way for white people either, who were actually raised in single homes, like I was. I mean, the number is still way too high. So I agree with you on that point. It's close, but it's closer to 40% and not 75% or whatever they made up. So, but here's the thing: what caused that? You can't just say it's just lack of fathers and that's it. I mean, you got to dig deeper. And that's why I say, I mean, we got to look at this with a more nuanced approach, because if we're just going to say it's lack of fathers, we're being lazy. And honestly, people who just say that, they don't have any interest in solving the problem. What caused that? Welfare. Okay. Yeah. Welfare was a factor. But how about the war on drugs? Oh, we don't want to talk about that because that was started under a Republican president. No, let's talk about all of it. Let's talk about everything that the government has done to the Black community to contribute to the issues that a lot of Black people face today. We need to have an honest conversation about this. And honestly, I think Black conservatives are the ones who could do it, because the left won't be honest about this. They'll say everything is about racism. But I talked to Bridget Fedesi about this earlier today. You'll hear that podcast next Thursday. It was on her podcast. But I said, you know, the left started pretending like there was a Klansman behind every tree that's just waiting to lynch a Black dude. They go way off the deep end. Whereas on the right, they respond to that because they don't have any ideas of their own. So they just react to what the left is doing. And they pretend, oh, racism plays no factor. The truth is somewhere in the middle. But it's only going to be Black conservative types who can actually speak to that. Because I'm not going to pretend like it's all racism. But I'm not going to pretend like racism is not playing a part. I mean, if you're actually doing reading, you'll see that that's not true. Let's see. Oh, yeah, Bernie Mac. That was a great show. Same thing. Positive. Let's see. What else we got here? How do we combat the messaging of Black Conservative Inc? I'm going to get to that, but I'm going to need more than just one video for it. And I do plan on creating more content on that. But really, I mean, I'll say off the bat, it starts with you, starts with me. We got to provide a better narrative. So a lot of times when I'm talking about these issues, I don't talk just about Black Conservative Inc. I say, well, what should the messaging be? How should we be appealing to the Black community? You got to do it by being honest about the issues that they face. Economic issues. What's holding Black people back economically? Can a Republican candidate get elected for mayor and remove the obstacles that are there for Black entrepreneurs who want to grow their businesses? We have to talk economics. That's the top thing. Education, school choice, but not just school choice. I want us to come up with more solutions, because school choice alone is great, but it's not going to take care of all of it. And so I think when we take this to other conservatives and say, hey, we don't need to be calling them slaves on a plantation. Instead, let's talk to them like normal Americans and talk about the issues that they're facing and how conservative solutions will help. And also, we need to get the conservative movement to stop talking about Black people and start talking to Black people. That's how we combat the negative messaging coming from Black Conservative Inc. They're not going to do it. They're not incentivized to do it. But that's why I want more voices. I don't want their voices to go away. They can say what they want. There are times they say stuff that I agree with. So fine. I don't want to subtract voices. I want to add voices. Let's get some more Black conservatives who actually want a solution for the Black community to go and change the conservative movement into a product that can be more easily sold to the Black community. I'm going off on too many digressions here, but you guys are giving me some good comments, so it's your fault. Okay, yeah, when we talk to conservatives, we deliver tough love. We don't go to liberals to talk about beloveds, us. But Black voters don't get that respect from Black Conservative Inc. And that's the problem. I mean, and I agree that there may be some out there thinking that, oh, this tough love will help them. Honestly, I think that's the way it started out. And here's my thing. I mean, I do blame them for the first 10, 20 years of doing it because it was such an obviously flawed strategy. But I can accept that maybe they thought that this would work and they messed up. I think that might be the case for a lot of them. But I'm sorry, if you're using the same strategy for 60, 70 years and it still isn't working, at this point, you're kind of doing it on purpose. Like, it's just, again, I give them too much credit to believe that this is still a mistake at this point. I say the same thing about Democrats running black cities. If you've been running it for 60, 70, 80 years and it's still in the same condition or it's gotten worse, at a certain point, if you're using the exact same solutions, you're doing it on purpose. Like you want this to happen. So the idea that we can win over more black voters by not respecting them or by insulting them into believing what we believe is absurd. Let's see. Why does see this window keeps scrolling back up here? I don't like that. Let's see. Okay. Oh, I like this one. The biggest problem in our community is a trap that the white liberals set for us with medical genocide. That's an issue. And you touched on an issue there that even makes me more frustrated because, I mean, Black conservatives want to deny the existence of systemic racism. Now, again, I believe that it exists. I just don't believe that it's to the extent that the left says. But here's the thing. Who's doing all the systemic racism? Who's been doing the systemic racism all throughout history? Now, I know Republicans haven't been innocent. I'm not claiming that. And like I just mentioned the war on drugs, most of it's been done by Democrats, and it is still being done by Democrats. If you look at most of the cities where Black people are doing the worst, Democrats are running them. Now, I know that there are cities that Democrats are running that are predominantly Black that are doing fine, so don't come at me with that. But if you look at the ones that are doing the worst, it's not Republicans running them. You can't blame it on Republicans. And yes, I do believe that a lot of those policies are racist. They're just more low-key racist. They can't be as outspoken with it. And you know what? Why won't we point that out? What is wrong with pointing that out? Especially if you're on the right, you should. I mean, you're so fond of saying Democrats are the real racists, but when it actually comes down to actually talking about what they do that's racist, you're like, oh well, that might not be racist. They're just, I mean, come on, call it out. No, you can admit that systemic racism exists without saying that the entire country is racist. Nope. Well, some people are saying that. I'm not. Most of us are. The sensible people are not. Let's see what else we got here. Man, you guys are coming with that fire tonight. I don't know what's going on. I'm loving it. Let's see. Jesse Lee Peterson hates Black people. There's plenty of YouTube videos he put out to back this up. I won't go so far as to say that he hates Black people, but let's just say I wouldn't be surprised if he did. I mean, but the thing with JLP, I don't take him that seriously. I mean, there's like a debate in our circles as to whether he's even serious about the stuff that he says or not. It's still wrong. I still hate it, but I don't know. And it's funny. I actually met Jesse Lee Peterson. I'll have to tell that story sometime. I met him when I was a younger man. It was very interesting. Let's see. Crap. Why does this keep? Okay, there we go. Another one from Jonah. Owens, Tatum, Peterson offer literally no solutions for how to resolve issues in the Black community, conservatism, and Republicans losing elections. Well, because that's not what they're there for. They're not there for that. They're there to throw red meat to their audience. And you know what? I'm just going to kind of go into what I was going to talk about anyway, because that kind of leads me into it. But it's like I said in my last video, these Black faces are put to the forefront because they want to give the illusion that the Republican Party actually cares about winning Black votes when historically, in recent history, it has not cared about that. They want to put forth the idea that the reason why Black people vote 90% for Democrats has nothing to do with the conservative movement or the Republican Party. And here's why they're doing that. And again, there's a book called Republicans and the Black Vote. This author makes this case as well. And I came to this conclusion without that book, and I've heard other people say it too. The majority of white conservatives, if you were to ask your average rank and file white conservative if they would like to see more Black people and more brown people on the right, I'd say 98% of them are going to say, hell yes, we would love that. They're sick of being called racist all the time. They do want more cultural diversity on the right. And the GOP establishment elite knows this. But since they don't really want to reach out to Black people, they don't want to invest the resources, they promote a narrative that is designed to get them to think that, oh, we're totally trying to get these Black people over here, guys. Just be patient. We're going to get them over there. But the thing is that all these Black people are stuck on this mental plantation. So we're trying to break them out of that and wake them all up. And so if we can't get them over here, it's not because we're not trying. It's because they're mentally enslaved. That's where that whole narrative comes from, because it deflects from the fact that the lily white movement was a thing in the Republican Party. It deflects from the fact that the Republican Party adopted a strategy designed to appeal to Southern white voters. Now, there is the Southern strategy. And again, I don't believe the left's take on this, but there was a realignment. I do agree that there was a realignment. I mean, history shows that. It's just more nuanced than the left will say. I mean, a lot of them have told me that all the racists in the Democratic Party got up and went over to the Republican Party, and all the non-racists went over to the Democratic Party. That ain't what happened. But there was a shift. There was a shift. And it was because the Republican Party decided not to continue going for Black votes. I'm not going to go too much into that because you probably already heard me talk about it. But the reason why Black people don't vote for Republicans is Republicans' fault. It's not the fault of the Black community. You can't vote for somebody who's not there. You can't vote for somebody who doesn't show up. You know what? You guys might not like hearing this, but the Democrats showed up and they earned the votes. Were they lying? Yes. Yeah, they were lying. Were they pandering? Yes, all of that. But here's another thing you might not want to hear. A lot of Democratic politicians actually are sincere. They have the wrong solutions. They don't understand that more government is what's hurting Black people. But if you're campaigning and people can see that you're at least sincere and that you want to talk to Black people, they're not going to vote for the party who calls you a trained chimpanzee. They're not going to vote for the party who props up people like that. They're not going to vote for the party who claims that Black people just want free stuff, or imply that Black people are lazy, or that most Black people are thugs, what have you, yada, yada, yada. Let's see. Yeah, the problem with saying how did the dad leave the home and how did the gangs get created is that no one explains how will placing the blame fix the issue. What are the solutions? Now, in one sense, you can say by identifying the cause of the problem, then you can solve it. But the problem is that they never get to the actual solving part. So they'll talk about every Monday, you see the news story, 11 people shot in Lori Lightfoot's Chicago. They'll talk about that, but they won't talk about any solutions. You won't see any pundit on the right saying, yeah, 10 people were shot in Chicago. Maybe we should start campaigning there so we can get rid of these Democrats that create this environment, and maybe we can do something about it. That competition would force the Democrats to actually start doing something. And if the Republicans win, which over time, if they actually try over time, then they can start actually getting in there, getting into the city councils and having an influence on the local governance. But the thing is that, I've explained why they're wrong about Black culture. Again, there are issues with Black culture. There's just like there are issues with every culture. It's not just us. But if all we're going to talk about is how horrible Black people are, we're not going to make any movement. And Black Conservative Inc. And I'm not even talking about everybody involved in Black Conservative Inc. in the establishment. I think there are some of those folks who actually want to make a difference. But the ones who get pushed to the forefront are only the ones who are willing to talk trash about the Black community. Now, I've heard some people say, oh, it's because it's what their audience wants to hear. I think there's truth to that. I think there is truth to that. I think that there are some white people on the right. I don't think it's the majority by any stretch of the imagination. But yeah, there are white people who just want to hear the worst about Black people. But like I said, the majority just don't know what they don't know. And, I talked, you guys might know Ross Schumann. I was on his podcast a while ago last year. And I asked him, why do so many white conservatives have this view of the Black community? I kind of already knew why, but he said, he gave me his experience. He grew up out here in Midland, Texas, in a more rural area. And he wasn't around Black people all that much. He had some Black neighbors, but his perception came from what he saw on TV. Now, so he saw that his neighbors were more normal, but in his mind, he just thought, oh, well, this is just an exception to the rule. Most of them aren't like this neighbor that I have and that I like. And then got into the military and started traveling, he was around more Black people, and he realized that he had basically been lied to, and that most Black people are perfectly normal people who just want to go to work, feed their families, worship God, and do what normal people do. So the media is a big culprit, and again, it's left-wing media too, not just the right. So let me get some more of these chats here. Let's see. Oh, okay. Fantastic automatic. You're always coming with that fire. Tough love is not talking down to or tearing down people. You can't tough love people you don't love. Well, yeah. I mean, a lot of people say, Candace Owens, Brandon Tatum, they don't like Black people. Here's the thing. I can't read minds, but if they do like Black people, they have a lot of trouble showing it. I mean, and they don't get that principle. Like, you can't reach people that you clearly don't like by your behavior. You know why Trump did so well? Oh, fantastic automatic's not going to like me talking about this, but Trump, the reason he did better than in 2016 than in the primaries than his opponents is because, and whether he's faking this or not, it doesn't matter. It's because he actually likes the people that he was trying to reach. He was able to turn blue collar people from Democrats to voting for him because when he interacts with them, you can just tell that he likes these people. Now, you can put whatever reason on that as you want. If you don't like Trump, you're just going to assume it's because of his ego or whatever. That's fine. I don't care. I'm not here to argue that. The bottom line, and I saw this at CPAC when he gave his speech, he loves these people. He likes the people that he's talking to. And he talked about that even when they were saying, we love you. That, I mean, you're not going to meet people. You're not going to get people by insulting them and talking down to them. One of the comebacks I always get is, well, why should we have to coddle Black people? Why should we have to pander to Black people? Well, but you don't say that about white people, though. Why does talking to people like regular folks all of a sudden become pandering when it involves Black people? All I'm asking is to have the same level of respect for Black people that you do for white voters. And I know that political discourse right now is very charged, so you've got a lot of insults flying, but people who are actually trying to win white people over, they're not out there insulting them. I guarantee you the Democrats that are trying to win over white voters in Texas, they're not insulting them. They're trying to win their votes. So yeah, you do have to talk to people with a level of respect. Let's see. I found you on the Hake report. It was hilarious. Yeah, that was funny. Yeah, they've got some issues over there. I will say he was very nice to me. Like, even before we had our debate, very gracious, very nice, even afterward. But man, that guy has been deceived. Whew. Let's see. I noticed most of Black Conservative Inc. focused on owning the libs than on promoting conservative values and helping Republicans win elections. That led to Dems regaining presidency, Senate, House. Yeah, you're right. And that's kind of the culture that we have over here. We love to own the libs. Hell, I love it too. I think it's funny. But you can't base an entire political libs. It doesn't work that way. Let's see. Shout out to Julian. They love Black people like a dude that beats his wife. Okay, you're wrong. Let's see what else we got here. Okay, I think Owens wants to care. She doesn't know how. Trump is genuine and has been all around all types of people in New York and doesn't speak condescending. Well, he does. If he doesn't like you, he'll condescend to you. But I know what you mean. You might be right. Maybe she does have some good intentions there. Maybe she wants to care, but just doesn't know how to show it. But then I would have to ask you, well, I mean, because she goes after white liberals too, just like I do. I'm cool with that. But it's just hard for me to believe. I mean, and you might be right. You might be right. I will acknowledge that. But to me, at a certain point, you have to realize that what you're doing is pushing people away, not bringing people in. Again, she's not a stupid person. She's smart. Who else we got? Let's see. Naomi Singleton. Owens won't publicly care about Black people as a whole unless she's getting paid to. Maybe. But, it's like Bridget Fedesi said when I was talking to her, there's no money in nuance. There should be, though. I mean, and I think that, you know, the reason I wanted to do this live stream was not so much to blast Candace Owens particularly, because like I said, it's not just her, it's the entire establishment. The panel that happened at CPAC was necessary. It was way too short, but it was necessary because we need to start having these hard conversations, white and black conservatives, Latino conservatives, Asian conservatives. We need to have some very tough but I mean, that's politics. I mean, you can't say you don't like black conservatives doing infighting, and then in the next breath, you're going to go ahead and bash Mitt Romney and Mitch McConnell, which, by the way, I would agree with you doing that. But these are hard conversations that we need to have. And again, that's why I don't use personal attacks, but I will bring fire on rhetoric that I know is repelling the black community. I want change. I want to affect change. I want change for Black Americans. My goal isn't to have a situation where 90% of Black people are voting Republican, because then the Republicans will just do what the Democrats have been doing for decades. I want representation on both sides. I want as close to 50-50 as we can get, because I want Black people to be able to have more power and influence over the government. Most of the improvements we're going to make, most of the progress we're going to make is going to come from the Black community itself. But at the same time, we need to make sure that the government is not an obstacle. And right now it is. And the only way to keep that from happening is if both parties know that they can lose our vote if they don't do what they're supposed to do. So hopefully that is what we're moving towards. I do see a lot of positive indications. I am more optimistic about this, but it's going to take some work. And we need we don't just need to counter the narrative on the left. We have to counter the narrative on the establishment right as well, because that has done tremendous damage to the conservative movement. And if this doesn't change, if the conservative movement and the Republican Party does not become a product that Black people want to buy, we will have a socialist nation, because with the way the demographics are changing, they're not going to be able to win by just appealing to white voters anymore. They need to appeal to the rest of the country. They need to go back to being the party of Lincoln. So I'm going to leave you with that. I thank you so much for showing up. I had more people today than I did even on Tuesday. So I appreciate you coming out to listen. Let me know if there are other questions that you want me to cover. Hit me up on Twitter at jeffontheright. And of course, if you haven't already, please subscribe. Please share this video. I really appreciate all of you. And I will see you next time.